Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Mac, and today we're taking a look at the elemental nerfs with the latest patch notes. 43 days. That's how long we went without Blizzard ever mentioning the word elemental in any of their patch notes. And unfortunately for us, when they did, it was to take roughly 4 to 5% of our damage away. You wait a month and a half to get acknowledged, only for that acknowledgement to be a nerf, and I'll be honest, that kinda sucks. So if you read it and immediately went to look for other classes that you could play, I get it, I had the same reaction. But don't panic just yet, because starting a patch in the hole is kind of Elemental's thing at this point, and it's never been where we actually end up. So let's look at what they actually did, because this might look a bit small, only affecting your grandmas and grandpas, but it's kind of bigger than you think. Pretty much 95 to 99% of your grandma and grandpa's damage was made up of Lava Burst and Chain Lightning, so for the ease of math, we'll just say it caught roughly a 20% nerf. And I think that's why a lot of people are going to read this and kind of shrug, because it's just our grandparents, right? It's just 2 lines and it doesn't seem all that big. But let's actually run it, because those 2 lines cover more of your damage than you might initially think. Our grandmas and grandpas are sitting generally somewhere around 20 to 25% of our total damage, depending upon the fight and the pull. So you take 20% off of the 20 or 25% of your total damage, and you're landing at between a 4 to 5% overall nerf. And that's not a small nerf. The 2 lines makes it seem very minimal, but 4 to 5% is pretty big. So that's the bad news out of the way, but why am I still not necessarily worried about it? This is every tuning change we got around 12.0, plotted from where we started, and I want to walk this through with you because the shape of it is the entire point. Quick note on how to read this: the baseline is where we sat going into the pre-patch, so everything you're about to see is measured against that as a starting point. February 3rd, a month out from patch launch, all damage was down by 5%, and Lightning Bolt was down by an additional 10%, totaling 15% damage down. 2 weeks after that, February 17th, we get another note where Earthquake was up 15%, Chain Lightning was down 15%, and Tempest traded 20% of its AoE damage for 40% more single target damage. Then on March 2nd, Midnight launches, and look where we're standing when we walk through the door. We're down pretty much across the board on a patch note that nobody was happy about. After that, we got 2 weeks of nothing until the season started on March 17th, and we get Chain Lightning and Earthquake both buffed by 10%. But the big change came from the following week of March 24th, right as the Mythic Raid opened and the Race to World First was about to start. Lava Burst up 20%, Elemental Blast and Earthshock up 15%, Lightning Bolt, Flame Shock, and Voltaic Blaze all up 10%. This all took Blizzard 22 days from the start of the expansion to realize that Elemental was not in a good spot. But the thing that actually jumps out to me on this graph isn't one change, it's rather how far these lines move. Look at the spread. Earthquake and Chain Lightning swing 25 points, and Lightning Bolt just spends the entire patch cycle bouncing around and finishes right below where it started. These aren't small little corrections, they're massive swings, over and over again until Blizzard finally landed on something that they thought felt alright. And that's the part I want you to think about. It took Blizzard 4 separate tuning passes across 7 weeks to find a happy balance for us. But what gets me is that they really started swinging 2 weeks before the patch dropped, and we're getting the exact same treatment this time around. And this is made a bit more frustrating given how massively they shifted our cooldowns. They pulled a big chunk of damage out of our Ascendants and pushed it into our baseline abilities. But that is a lot of buttons and dials to get right on the first try. And if we're being honest, Blizzard doesn't exactly have the best track record with this kind of stuff. So no, I don't expect our tuning to end here. If anything, I feel like we're going to be on a trampoline for the next couple of weeks. But there's a big difference between Season 1 and Season 2, which does make me a bit worried. Season 1 gave us a heroic week. The season started on March 17th, and Mythic didn't come out until the 24th. So Blizzard got 7 days of real raid logs before the Race to World first started, and they used them, which is where that big March 24th patch notes came from. But this season, there's no heroic week. So there is no raid data to tune off of. Whatever they've got on the 18th is what they're working with, and when that race starts, those tuning numbers are going to freeze. Which means we've got effectively 2 weeks until the patch drops, and 3 weeks until the race starts, and almost none of that is time Blizzard can actually get meaningful data. So I expect small stuff between now and then, but the real tuning that will actually move where we sit on the tier list, I don't expect that to come until after someone claims the world first. Now, real quick before I get into what any of this actually means to you, we might not be able to do anything about the tuning, but what we can do is make sure we're not the reason our numbers look low. So if you want a hand tightening up your build, your rotation, and anything in between before the season starts, I offer elemental coaching over on my Patreon with the link in the description below. Alright, shameless plug out of the way, let's talk about what these changes mean for you. Honestly, it means less than you think it does, and that's kind of the whole point of the video. You don't want to reroll off of 2 small lines in one patch note. I know that sounds obvious, but every single week somebody in my guild, Robbie, tells me that they're going to be changing classes again, and I assume that a good amount of the WoW community has the same kind of ADD brain rot that he does, so don't panic. We have no idea where we're going to end up, and neither do any of the other classes. But what you should do is get comfortable with both hero talents. Because the nerf hit Farseer this time, but left Stormbringer completely alone, which does close the gap between them about 4 to 5%. I'm not going to sit here and tell you which one's going to come out ahead because I genuinely don't know, and neither does anybody else right now. But if you've only ever played one of them, you're going to be learning a hero tree in the week 1 of a season where everybody else is pushing keys, and that's a bad week to be figuring out your rotation. So play both, take them into keys, get a feel for the rhythm of each, and then whichever way the tuning falls, you can just swap and keep going instead of starting from scratch. And also, if we come out on the 18th sitting low, be loud about it. On the forums, on the class discords, in places where Blizzard actually reads, and especially be as loud as you can in the comment section. Don't get me wrong, we are great at complaining to each other, but we're bad at complaining where it might count. So feel free to complain in the comment section down below. But yeah, that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and drop a like. It really does help the channel a lot, and if you want more Elemental or general WoW content, make sure to subscribe as well. I also stream over on Twitch, usually raid nights or pushing keys, so come hang out, say hi, or just complain alongside me as these patch notes unfold. And if you want to support the channel a bit more directly, I've got a Patreon linked below where I offer coaching and additional content, along with a Discord where you can talk about the spec, ask questions, or just hang out with the community. But yeah, that's all I got for this one, so thank you all very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I will see you in the next one.